All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. It's Super Bowl Sunday. The day's finally here. Christmas morning for guys like us. Feels like nothing since we just started this, and it was week one talking about our predictions that ended up so awful, and just like that, final game of the season, final day of the season. Let's get started. Give our analysis for Super Bowl 57.
Yeah, so we decided to leave this final episode for the regular season to go over the Super Bowl, and that's exactly what we're gonna do here. So the video will not be too long; it'll be a little lengthy, little here and there, so we will actually go in a little deeper with our simple analysis over the Super Bowl game. So yeah, obviously, let's get right ahead and let's get started.
Yeah, so obviously let's get it right started with our AFC champion. Once again, back for the third time in 3 years, the Kansas City Chiefs. Talk about their offense first. I mean, what more can you say? Obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes. He's been, ever since he took the starting role 5 years ago, as he took the reins from Alex Smith, he's been arguably the best player of this generation. And I mean, you see, nothing changed this season. Obviously he held the number one offense overall, and then the number one pass offense. The rushing offense was a little lackluster overall, but I mean, obviously that didn't really take much effect. You see, as Isaiah Pacheco did start really picking it up, as we always go back to, that Rams game really seemed to be his breakout game, and ever since then, he's really been a great part of this Chiefs offense, and obviously he's going to be a great factor. I know you really love talking about him, love what he's been doing this season. But just going back to Mahomes, I mean, there was like so much talk at the beginning of the year, and obviously, I for one made the outlandish prediction saying the Chargers were going to take this division. Still expecting the Chiefs to make it, of course, but I mean, everyone was thinking the Chiefs were going to fall off. Seeing the AFC West just getting loaded, seeing Devontae to the Raiders, Russ to the Broncos, and just the Chargers looking so stacked as they were. Not to mention the Chiefs losing Tyreek, and just they looked like they were weakened at this point. But adding Juju, adding Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that really just reloaded this team. And obviously, you see them; they went 14-3. Another year for the Andy Reid-led Chiefs that we just gotten so used to seeing. But I mean, there's I mean, what more can you say? It was just a great year. Despite how stacked this team is, still proving everyone wrong, and you got to give it up to Mahomes for what he's been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, that offense since Mahomes took over in 2018, I believe so. His first year as a starter, which he did go to the AFC Championship too, but sadly he did lose in overtime to Brady. But just seeing what Mahomes can do, it's obviously we've seen it before. I mean, look at Tom Brady. He is the undisputed GOAT of football. But there's already talks around, and yes, it's true. If Mahomes could keep this up, he could possibly pass Brady in the GOAT status. Could be a little early to say this, but we are being reasonable here. I mean, he's going to his third Super Bowl in his fifth year as a starter. And in those 5 starts, he's won a Super Bowl, he's lost a Super Bowl. So right now, his Super Bowl record is even right now, especially with his championship records. He's been to at least the championship every single year since he's been a starter. That you really can't see that at another quarterback other than Brady. But what Mahomes is doing right now, how he's leading the offense, it's like outstanding, and this Chiefs offense is really what's going to help them really win the Super Bowl here. I mean, I like how you said adding weapons like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju. I love Juju. We love our USC players. I mean, Juju. I mean, I really see more Juju now as more of a chemistry player. Sure, he's had like a pretty decent games here and there, but when we really look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he's pretty much been the better. The answer here. I mean, we saw last week against the Bengals, he had a career day. Not a career game, but he had a great game. He had over 100 yards, a touchdown or two, I believe so, and that really did put him up against the Bengals right there. So I do think coming into this game, Marquez Valdez-Scantling would possibly be the another passing option for Patrick Mahomes, because obviously we also didn't talk about Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce is his number one target. I mean, we see what he can do. We saw what he did against Jacksonville. We saw him. I think we broke the record. We saw what he did against the Bengals. I mean, realistically, the Eagles are really gonna have to contain Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is really one they're gonna really maintain about, and then obviously spreading out the passing game with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju. They're really gonna make really something happen right there. And then obviously looking at the rushing attack, like you mentioned, Isaiah Pacheco with his breakout game against your Rams, and I've had my little stride against Pacheco. He's very good, he's a good player, very good player as coming into the Super Bowl as a rookie. So I really don't expect him to have an explosive game, especially with that Eagles front seven. It's very, very dangerous, especially with Jet McKinnon. I love Jet McKinnon specifically when he was with the Vikings. I feel like using Jet McKinnon in the screenplays could probably be a very good way for them to actually get through the Eagles' defense. Now, the thing that will hold the Chiefs back is their defense. Now, we've seen those whole season how very inconsistent this Chiefs defense was. I mean, looking at it, their cornerbacks, really inconsistent at its finest. I mean, I know how I talk about the Chargers being inconsistent, proving me here and there, right? We went over that. The Chiefs defense, the front seven is beautiful. I mean, Chris Jones, the leader of that front seven, is like outstanding. You see how they're able to sack Joe Burrow, I believe, 4 times in the first half. I
think it was 5, actually.
5.
Yeah.
4 to 5 in the first half. Yeah, they got to him 4 to 5 times in the first half. That front seven of the Chiefs is very deadly. Now, looking at the linebackers, their linebackers are good. They're very good, but sometimes, they could be easier to read, and we've seen it in the past. Now, when we look at the defensive backs are really, really iffy. I mean, you have Juan Thornhill, who is, he's a, I think, 3 to 4 year vet already. Juan Thornhill, yeah, he was in the Super Bowl as a rookie in 2019 and 20, that season. There you go. So, he's in the league for 4 years already. He's pretty okay, but their defensive backs are very iffy. I mean, we saw how Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, were cooking them the whole game, how open they were getting. We saw T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd in double coverage, getting that touchdown to keep the Bengals in the game. I mean, realistically, it's really the defense. Realistically, the defensive backs that are really going to hold it back. And that's going to obviously not necessarily, I would say, put more pressure on Mahomes, but we see how Mahomes is under pressure. I mean, you can get that at 10 seconds and he can come up with something big here. But obviously, I think we talked about the over-under is 50 points or 51? 51. So obviously, I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Probably 40 points each team. That's probably realistic with these both teams. But realistically, the Chiefs' defense, it's okay at best, but very inconsistent. And those defensive backs, they're gonna have a really bad game if they cannot contain AJ Brown and Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I mean, you put it best. If the Chiefs do have a weakness, it is this defense. I mean, like you say, Chris Jones, he is obviously the highlight on this defense, but apart from that, you don't really see anyone that like really stands out at you. Like, obviously, we'll get to the Eagles defense soon, but that's one of like the strongest groups in football this year. And I mean, you see here, there's a couple guys that they did end up having their moments. L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay Jr. They had their own little moments in the AFC Championship, but obviously in this playoff run, but. It really hasn't been sustainable, like what we always say, the inconsistency with some of these teams, and obviously we see that a lot here. I mean, it's kind of just a deal about how it's the inconsistency, and kind of they kind of have an older group. I mean, we see guys like Frank Clark and obviously Carlos Dunlap, I believe, still on here. So it's an aging group. They probably I mean, they're past their prime, but they've done enough to get him here, so it just depends how much they can hold out this longer. I mean, we see probably not even giving him enough credit. George Karlaftis, the rookie this year, he's probably been another bright spot for this defense. Who I believe he's got like about 10 sacks, something like that he was able to get this year. So it's still a decent defense, no doubt, but that is gonna hold this Chiefs team just a little bit. Now, of course, we'll move on right to our NFC champion, the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, people really surprised how quickly this team came out of nowhere. Obviously, Nick Sirianni, just a great mind. People were doubting him ever since the blowout loss to the Buccaneers last year in the wild card round. Regardless, he has done immense things to change the culture in Philadelphia ever since the win Super Bowl 52. It's just been downhill. Obviously, we've seen Carson Wentz falling off and the whole team falling off. Everything culminating in that week 17, week 18 game a couple years ago, where they basically threw the game, let Washington win the division, and everyone, it was a pretty bad look for the Eagles, regardless. But now we see how much they've risen. Got the number 2 offense in the league right now with just one of the biggest resurging quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts. Everyone was writing him off, starting to call him a bust, and even saying that they should be moving on and looking for another quarterback, whether in the market or in the draft. But I mean, he's just done wonders. You probably would have been the MVP if it wasn't for those couple games he missed, and I guess a little drop in performance throughout the middle of the season. But regardless, he has just been the key to this great run the Eagles are in. And of course, the acquisition of AJ Brown, which that is still mind blowing that the Titans decided to let him go for that little value. But I mean, the Eagles will take it, and that obviously the insane receiving tandem of him and Devontae Smith has obviously done wonders for this offense, and just everything clicks when this team is going. I mean, we see. Say what you want about what happened in the NFC Championship, but I mean, even if any of that didn't happen, you can really tell the Eagles were going to overmatch regardless. Say that it was going to be a closer game, but regardless, the Eagles are very clearly the best team in the NFC, and they are well deserved to have made it out.
Yeah, I mean, you put it to the right, great right there. But yeah, that Eagles offense is really it's real outstanding. And obviously, coming back to what you said about Harry Roseman, he did change the culture in Philadelphia. The Eagles, I mean, he actually went all in. I mean, we know a couple years ago, Harry Roseman, everyone wanted out of all of Philadelphia wanted him out of GM, general manager, because he really couldn't do anything well with the draft, free agents, and now look what he did here. He went out in the draft last year and traded for AJ Brown. He put on an outstanding offensive line. He traded for Hassan Riddick, and then obviously a couple years ago he did sign Darius Slay, and then obviously he did sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and obviously another asset that they had was Russell Douglas. I mean, looking at this, and then we see what they did. I mean, they were 8-0 at some point, and obviously losing to a division rival, which I mean, can't say about that. It was more of a surprise game, but I mean, looking at this offense, it's really outstanding with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. They're deadly weapon. I mean, I had AJ Brown for my fantasy, and he put me up sometimes. But the thing with AJ Brown is once a corner does clamp him up a bit, he kind of goes ghost the entire game. And I mean, that's kind of what happens. I mean, the first matchup against the Cowboys, Diggs did lock him up the whole game. I mean, regardless, Philly still got the dub. But I mean, in targets, I mean, Diggs only held him to, I think, like a couple catches for 11 yards. So I mean, AJ Brown, he does go ghost if he does get clamped up. But looking at Devonta Smith, for him being a receiver too, he does put up pretty good numbers for a receiver. And looking back to the next game with the second matchup with my Cowboys, and during Christmas Eve, we saw Devonta Smith went for 2 touchdowns, cooking our corners. And sure, I can still say like, oh, those are second string corners, blah blah blah, this and that. I mean, they're still in the league, they're still professionals going against professional players. I mean, so that's the most realistic point I can put it there. And for a receiver too, he was really going off. I mean, we saw AJ Brown was kind of quiet that game. Had some explosive plays here and there, and it was pretty good. Especially his first play, especially the first drive when he had that big bomb to set up some yardage. But realistically, if AJ Brown and Devonta Smith can get going early, especially with how inconsistent and lackluster the Chiefs defensive backs can be, I feel like it could be a very great game for Philly in a very bad time for Chiefs. And obviously, the game could go both ways with how high powered this team is. But now, obviously, looking back at the Phillies defense, this is obviously their the main reason why they're gonna have a really great game. I talked about earlier, Howie Roseman, he really changed the culture of this defense, getting Hassan Reddick, Rasul Douglas, and CJ Gardner-Johnson. I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson and Rasul Douglas, they really put an impact for these Philly defensive backs. And then obviously looking at Maddox on the other side, outstanding too. And then Blankenship taking over in the safety position, he did pretty well. And that front seven, that deadly front seven, I mean, Hassan Reddick, he's a sack machine. He's a sack machine, and he's gonna be very scary going up against that Chiefs O-line. The Chiefs O-line is pretty good. It is very good, but they're going against the very deadly front seven of these Philadelphia Eagles. Hassan Reddick, going to keep going back to Hassan Reddick. He's the centerpiece of that Eagles defense. As soon as Hassan Reddick gets going against offenses, it's really going to open up the defensive game for the cornerbacks to get easier to lock up the corners. Obviously the safeties kind of pushing back a little, but obviously they still got to do their job. And obviously going on with the linebackers as well for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's easier for them. I mean, they're great at containing the quarterback, but obviously there's some flaws to the Eagles defense. Obviously, when they go against a very, very high-powered offense, we saw this in the Christmas Eve game against my Cowboys. Dak threw a pick six, we're down 10-0, and obviously we come back, score. It's a scoring matchup. It's literally it's a shootout the whole game, and we see with the flaws Philadelphia has with the great offense. As soon as the receivers, obviously there's a common sense. As soon as receivers start getting open, it opens up the passing game more. And we had no run game that game either, which pretty much said everything to pass. But obviously those Eagles cornerbacks, obviously like every other, they do get tired, this and that, blah blah blah. Say what you want to say. But the Eagles will be going up against a very high-powered Chiefs offense. And the Chiefs offense, especially with having Travis Kelce there and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's pretty much opened up to be another wide threat for the Chiefs, and having Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback position with a very good offensive line, this Philly defense will have a tough time. Both teams will have a tough time. It will have a tough time for both teams. The over is 51. I think me and you kind of agree that it would go over that, but depending how these teams look, it can honestly go both ways. And who knows? Maybe it could be a low-scoring game, but the way with each flaw that these have, both great high-powered offenses, one sluggish defense against another great top two defense. You're gonna have to wait and see until it plays out. And obviously, coming to the real predictions with the Chiefs' very high-powered offense with the sluggish defense, and obviously with the Eagles' high-powered offense with their amazing defense, I have the Kansas City Chiefs coming on top. This one winning 48-45. It will be a nice, very high-scoring game. A very interesting, very entertaining Super Bowl. I feel like this will be an offensive battle. Defenses will have a day. Not have a day. Excuse me. Defenses will have a very, tough time, but I got a very great offensive battle playing out today.
I believe that would be the highest scoring Super Bowl if your prediction does come up. But yeah, obviously, like you said, we are quite in agreement that the over will be hitting on this game. To me, just it comes down to the big battle between the Chiefs offense and the Eagles defense, because that obviously I'm pretty sure, just looking at it right now, that Jalen Hurts will get the better of this Chiefs defense. So it just depends on what the Eagles defense can do to contain Mahomes, and I feel like they're gonna get to him pretty good. I feel like Mahomes will throw 2 interceptions. Won't be his fault, though. I feel like it's just gonna be kind of what Dak went through, just facing great defenses, and it kind of just looks a little worse on him. But regardless, I think Mahomes gonna have a great game. I see it high scoring as well, of course. But I'm gonna take the Eagles 30-26. I'm expecting not outlandishly high scoring to make it the highest game in Super Bowl history, but I'll take these two high powered offenses to really go at it. And of course the defenses struggle a bit, but I believe the Eagles defense will make a big stand at the end and keep Mahomes from a historic game-winning drive right at the end. And of course, before we finish off these predictions, I'll have Jalen Hurts is my MVP. I expect him to go, about 220, probably rush and throw for a touchdown. Um, I like to see you give your Super Bowl MVP.
I got Travis Kelce with my Super Bowl MVP. I mean, everyone really expects Mahomes, but I feel like Travis Kelce in this game, he is going to be extremely clutch in this situation, and he's going to have a great game against that Philly defense, especially how great they are. But I do got Travis Kelce with my Super Bowl MVP.
Obviously, a solid pick. Nice wild card pick. But of course, like we said, this was going to be a little shorter, and that is going to wrap up our Super Bowl preview. Obviously, starting with this, we are going to kind of start little different types of videos. So I see season is at its end. Today will be last day of the season. So once the off season hits, start rolling out a bunch more, a lot of different kinds of videos. And of course, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. And Christian, and anything for you to send us off?
That's pretty much gonna be it. Last episode of the regular season, the Beat Football podcast. We're just gonna have to wait and see what other ideas we got. And with that being said, let's enjoy the Super Bowl and wait another 7 months for the NFL season to start. And obviously, that being said, we'll hopefully see you guys in the next episode of the Beat Football podcast.